Welcome to the Daily Transfer Show. I'm your host Miles. I'm joined here by our chief correspondent Peter Staunton. We've got a packed show for you today and we're going to kick straight in with Alexis Sanchez. So the latest news we have from our Man City correspondent Sam Lee is that the move for Alexis Sanchez is completely off the table. Pep Guardiola has pulled the plug after Manchester United's interest and completely out of the blue really. You think back to a week ago, nobody expected this, did they?
A week ago it looked a fait accompli. It looked like that Man City and Alexis Sanchez, match made in heaven. They needed him to play up front to replace Sergio Aguero. They were going to get him at a decent price and give their last few months of the season that, you know, sort of extra little boost to get them over the line and win the title. Looked a good deal for Arsenal as well. Just get him off the books, get some money in for him, don't lose him on a free transfer, and then try and set about replace him in the summer. But the late interest from Man United has turned this one completely on its head. I mean, before last Friday, there was no talk whatsoever about Man United. No. And even when it did start to manifest itself, even Sam Lee, our Man City correspondent, he was not so sure. And his sources within City were not so sure whether Man United,
everyone off guard.
Yeah, he wasn't so sure whether they were mischief making or trying to drive the price up for City or just try and put a spanner in the works. But now it appears that Alexis Sanchez is heading to Man United.
Is this a Mourinho getting one over Pep in terms of the mind game? Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. But not only has he got one over on him psychologically, he's got one over him on the pitch here. Because let's not forget, you know, Alexis Sanchez is a great player, one who would improve either City or United. So for Mourinho to come in at this late stage to steal a deal for a player that Guardiola has already, you know, we assume spoken to, or at least made contact to through intermediaries, and convinced him to go to Man United instead, you know, that's quite a feat for Mourinho. And I know there's people out there who are saying that, you know, it's just because they offered him more money. Look, the demands were there to be met. City didn't meet the demands that Arsenal were asking for. Arsenal wanted something like 30 to 35 million, and City didn't feel that was representing a good value for a player who's 29 and out of contract in just a few months' time. Plus, there was the wage issue to consider. Now, Man United paid Galactico wages. So for them to go in and pay what they're paying for Alexis Sanchez now, what we assume is sort of 350 to 400,000 for Alexis Sanchez, that's no big deal really for a club like Man United. But Man City have got contract renegotiations taking place at the minute with Kevin De Bruyne. We're going to be looking at contract negotiations for a lot of their top stars, a lot of their top forwards. And if Sanchez goes in on 100,000 or 200,000 more than these guys, Raheem Sterling is another one, more than what they're on already, well, you know, then these guys' agents are going to say, well, if you think Sanchez is worth this, well, my player took you 22 matches unbeaten in the Premier League, my players got you the Premier League title, so we want the same money. So I can understand from that perspective why Guardiola might be a little bit reticent to complete the deal. Yeah,
it seems to me like Man City have a little bit of a problem in terms of the perils of just assuming that because they're a top team, because they have Pep Guardiola, that a player that they've been chasing is going to sign for them, because it happened in the summer, didn't it, with Dani Alves, where it seemed like he was almost definitely, it was wrapped up, done deal, and PSG came in at the last minute, offered him a more appealing offer. At the time, there was obviously no Neymar there, but maybe they could have given him that information.
Well, Alves was probably dangled as bait for Neymar subsequently, but that's happened to City twice now. They've been gazumped. So, you know, going forward, it's something that Guardiola needs to be, I suppose, mindful of. But what I will say is that there was no doubt that Sanchez wanted to work with Pep Guardiola, no doubt whatsoever. But it's more his desperation to leave Arsenal in this January window that has pushed this deal forward. He does not want to be at Arsenal any longer. He will not play for Arsenal again, seemingly. So it's get out of Arsenal by hook or crook. And if he can't get City, then he's happy enough to go to United.
Do you think it was a mistake for Arsenal to have kept him in the summer and not cashed in on the deal?
No, because they couldn't replace him. But now we're getting into the talk about replacements. And they're not looking to do Thomas Lemar in sort of 6 hours. They've got 2 weeks now to do something for the next players that you're going to mention, Miles, which would be Malcolm and perhaps Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
Where do you see Alexis Sanchez fitting into Man United's first team then?
I see him becoming maybe like another Park Ji-sung for Jose Mourinho.
Chasing up and down the wing. Workhorse.
You know, putting him maybe... Well, no, obviously I've been a little bit glib there. I see him becoming a wide forward. I know that people are saying that Mourinho likes his attackers to defend first and then sort of, you know, use their opportunities on goal. They get those as a treat every now and again. But I think he'll build Sanchez as a focal point to this team.
You don't see him slipping into the forward role and maybe offering some competition for Lukaku?
Well, the thing is with Sanchez, he's played to that one position for Arsenal so often that we've come to regard him as maybe a right-footed left winger first. But he's so versatile; he can play all the way across the front three.
Yeah.
He can play wide right for Chile. He can play up front as well. He can play in behind too. So he will give United options all over that sort of attacking area. I wouldn't be surprised to see him play as the striker, but I wouldn't be surprised either to see him play in behind where Lingard has been played as well.
So assuming he goes through a fantastic deal for Man United.
Fantastic deal, brilliant deal, and shows that, you know, no matter what you think about United and the current state of their form and how they've been since Ferguson left, they're still a huge draw. You know, for them to be able to boast players like Pogba and Sanchez and Lukaku in the one team, you know, that says something about the attractiveness of United as a destination, but also the attractiveness still of maybe playing for Jose Mourinho.
Meanwhile, over at Arsenal, as you mentioned, they are showing quite heavy interest in Malcolm, who's a Bordeaux winger. He's 20 years old and he's been making waves, hasn't he, in Ligue 1 this season?
Yeah, if you watched our show, I think it was on Friday, or Thursday or Friday, we did a fairly comprehensive review of who Malcolm is. So we'll spare you the details on that. But suffice to say that we think, according to Chris Wheatley, our Arsenal correspondent, very, very close to the action when it comes to Arsenal, that progress has been made over this deal. Now, Sanchez didn't play, obviously, for Arsenal yesterday against Bournemouth. They suffered a 2-1 defeat, which is another catastrophe for Wenger. And the fact that they suffered that defeat without Sanchez in the lineup just adds more grist to the mill for Wenger's critics. However, 44 million for Malcolm, a big price to pay for what is a relatively unproven talent. He hasn't got 2 years done yet, really, in European football. But this is a player who's fed Mislintat, Arsenal's chief scouts. He's big potential in. And although you mightn't think that he's going to come in and do the job that Sanchez has been doing immediately, but he's certainly going to be one for the future. Yeah,
I mean, it seems like it'd be quite acute because essentially Man United have been after him as well.
Yes.
Man City have been after him. If they can get him, then they'll be pretty happy with it.
I think they'd be pretty happy with that. But moreover, other developments, most notably in Dortmund, might give Arsenal fans a little bit more happiness.
So Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang has been pushing for a transfer behind the scenes. That looks good.
Yes.
It seemed for a while like China was going to be his inevitable destination. It wasn't exactly certain which club it was going to be. There's been a bit of a scrap going back and forth over there, as we discussed on a previous show. But there are increasing rumours that maybe Arsenal are going to be pushing towards a deal for Aubameyang, and that would be quite exciting, wouldn't it? Yeah,
well, if Arsenal are going to complete a deal for Aubameyang, they'd be starting from scratch. It's not like City coming back in for Sanchez in January when they tried again when they tried before in summer. None of the groundwork for a deal between Arsenal and Aubameyang has been done previously, so this would be a brand new deal. However, what's going in Arsenal's favour on this deal, if they do decide to pursue it, is again Mislintat, who is responsible for bringing Aubameyang from Saint-Etienne to Borussia Dortmund in the first place. So maybe he might be able to convince Aubameyang that the Emirates is a good place to go, because over the weekend we know from Hans-Joachim Watzke and from Peter Stoger, the coach at Dortmund, we've had the quotes, they've been quite open about it, that Aubameyang doesn't really want to be there anymore. He missed the team meeting on Saturday before their Bundesliga game, and his heart's not really in it. And as you said already, it was Beijing Guoan and Guangzhou Evergrande who've both been linked with his signature. But I still think there's top-level football left in Aubameyang. And maybe for a price of 60 million euros, I think it's a real no-brainer for Arsenal to get Aubameyang in. 21 goals in 23 games this season. The guy, he's an electric forward. Yeah,
he's been fantastic for them the past 2 seasons as well, hasn't he? He's really been scoring goals non-stop. Like Barcelona and Real Madrid have been linked to them for quite a while. You know, this isn't someone coming out of the blue like, for example, Malcolm, who's a bit younger. This is someone who's a proven goal.
He's established. I know Arsenal have been frustrated. Well, you remember they got Özil and Sanchez in, and Arsenal fans were really excited, and they missed out on players like Higuain, who were huge players. And physically huge, Higuain as well, but huge players that maybe frustrated Arsenal a little bit that they couldn't complete a deal for a top-level signing. But make no mistake, Aubameyang is an absolute top-level signing. He's as good as Arsenal could get, and if they can bring him in the summer, in this winter transfer window, then hats off, chapeau to Mr. Wenger and Mr. Mislintat.
The good news for Arsenal fans is that the Dortmund's transfer chief, Michael Zorc, he seems pretty certain that there is a bit of truth to the fact that he does want to leave. So he said at the weekend, what's going on is intolerable on our part. We will also fine him wages. We don't want to speculate on a transfer, but it's clear that things can't go on like this because there's unrest in the team. So, you know, he's unsettling the Dortmund squad.
And don't forget, they went through this already already this season with Dembele,
Yeah.
who took himself on strike before he got his move to Barcelona. So if there's one, and you can see the damage that did to Dortmund's season, they've been, kind of well off the pace that they've usually set. Their manager's already been sacked.
Yeah.
So, if any club knows the unrest that an impending transfer can do inside a dressing room, then it's Dortmund. They've sold their fair share of stars. Mkhitaryan, Kagawa, who else? If they think that this is going to disrupt their season any further, then Aubameyang will be put into a Sanchez situation where it's like, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
You reckon it could be a Premier League success then?
Absolutely, yeah. He's got so many weapons. Not only is he quick, but he's such an intelligent striker. His movement is second to none. And I would fancy him to come in, start immediately for Arsenal, and hit the ground running. And could maybe even score maybe 10 to 12 goals by the end of the season. But they've got 2 weeks to do the deal. Get Malcolm in, get Aubameyang in. And Arsenal fans, I think you'd agree with me by saying that it would be a pretty decent transfer window if you got rid of Alexis and brought in Malcolm and Aubameyang.
And maybe Mkhitaryan as well, who's been linked with a swap deal if they do get their hands on... If Man United get their hands on Alexis Sanchez, it's been mooted.
This one is a little bit more worrying for Arsenal fans because that would hint to me that they're looking for a playmaker, which means that Özil's future might be resolved one way or another.
Or Mkhitaryan.
Who would I rather?
Yeah.
Every day of the week, Özil.
Yeah.
Oh, every day of the week.
Let us know in the comment section if you prefer Özil or Mkhitaryan. We're going to move now to a more far-fetched rumour which has been coming out of Spain. A few of the different outlets out there suggesting that Real Madrid are considering a swap deal for Cristiano Ronaldo and PSG star Neymar, who of course only left Barcelona in the summer, but already the talks have been maybe not quite been settled into life at Paris. Maybe talks have been going back to one of the Classico clubs, but the other one this time. Do you think that's a deal that Real Madrid should be considering making, or no?
If you're asking me, do I think Neymar is going to see out his full contract at PSG? My answer is no. We know from certain Brazilian sources that there was an issue. His son, I think, stayed in Barcelona while he was in Paris, and there was an issue where he couldn't see him as often as he wanted. So maybe he wanted to go back to Spain. The level of football, obviously, at Paris Saint-Germain is far beneath the level in Ligue 1, should I say, is far beneath what he was used to playing against when he's playing for Barcelona. And also, there's been issues in the dressing room. We know the Cavani spat. And there's maybe 4 or 5 Brazilian players in that dressing room, led by Neymar, Dani Alves, Thiago Silva, Marquinhos, those guys, who are maybe a little bit too dominant for the liking of some of the other established factions within the PSG dressing room. So to break that up might do PSG a favour in the long run. You can't go transferring straight from Barcelona to Real Madrid,
That would be crazy. But in the space of a year, essentially.
In the space of a year, I mean, look, when Neymar was coming through as a teenager, and it looked at one stage that the deal with Real Madrid was done, I thought, well, he's going to suit them down to the ground. He's a showbiz player. He's a Galactico. And he really surprised me to how well he adapted to life at Barcelona because he took the self out of his game. He served Messi really, really well. Diligent player. Started passing the ball more rather than just dribbling all the time. And like I said, he really surprised me by being so diligent at Barca. But maybe the Galactico within Neymar is ready to come out now. Which is why he left Barcelona maybe in the first place. He wanted to be number 10 and he wanted to be the number 1 player. And as you can see this season, I mean, what has Ronaldo got in the league this year? It's 4 goals. It's a really, really paltry return for such a player of high pedigree. I see his days at the top beginning to come to an end, although I said that a couple of years ago too, and he ends up winning the Ballon d'Or, winning the Euros, everything. But this year, I mean, Real Madrid look like they're in terminal decline. And just a few months ago, I was speaking about Real Madrid as a team who could rival Guardiola's Barcelona, but the wheels seem to have just come off in double quick time. So Zidane has got a lot of work to do to rescue their season. And whether Ronaldo is going to be central to those rebuilding efforts at the age of 32, 33 later on this year, if he's going to be central to the rebuilding efforts at Real Madrid, well, that's another story.
I mean, obviously it seems like La Liga is essentially out of the question at this point. It seems that Barcelona have got such a healthy lead that it's going to be very, very difficult.
Is it 19 points between the 2 teams?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it would take a complete fallout of miraculous proportions for Real Madrid.
It's never going to happen.
No, but having said that, if you were Real Madrid and you win the Champions League instead of winning La Liga, that's something you would take, wouldn't you, as a Real Madrid fan? Rather than if you were split between the two, they will be smug if they win the Champions League, even if Barcelona. Yeah,
and you still can't rule them out of the Champions League because other than that game against Spurs, which I was at in Wembley, which was a disaster for them, that La Liga form hasn't seeped into the European form yet. They haven't really been infected by that, but. It's hard to arrest the form. I mean, by the time the Champions League game against PSG comes around, they won't have played in Europe for maybe 3 or 4 months. So there's every chance that they'll maybe lose that muscle memory, how well they've been playing in Europe by that time comes along. But then it'll be Ronaldo against Neymar. And people are going to be read it all on goal in a few weeks' time. Read it all on goal.
We're going to be talking about it constantly when it comes around.
We love all that.
The last 16's in February, isn't it? It's not for a few weeks.
Not for a few weeks.
It's going to wait a little while. Yeah. So we're going to read out some user comments now. Thanks to those of you who've got involved in the comment section below. We're going to kick off with a question on... Shimezi says that Ronaldo should leave Madrid.
Why?
He doesn't give a reason, but he should just leave. I mean, he has been there a while.
He's been there a while, yeah. But
nearly a decade.
The thing is, one thing I've noticed about Ronaldo is whenever you write him off, he turns his form around and he ends up making any predictions about his demise look really embarrassing.
So this is that moment where he really kicks in.
Yeah, well, if he turns around against PSG and scores 2 hat-tricks, which is absolutely perfectly plausible, and they go on and win the Champions League, and then we say, well, we're all of a sudden again scratching our heads. Did Real Madrid have a bad season? They won the Champions League and Ronaldo's the top scorer again. How do you define that as a bad season? And he's made that habit. But like I said, this year it seems a little bit different to me. He just cannot get going at all. And if Real Madrid could cash in 100 million, let's say, same price that they paid from 9 years ago, and that player, that Real Madrid, that Cristiano Ronaldo, who they bought 9 years ago. If Neymar is worth 222 million euros, he's probably worth $1 billion. That particular player. Yeah. So if they can get the same price back, 100 million in this market, I think they'd maybe take it.
How about this then? So we've got a comment from Iona that says, how to swap Ronaldo with Neymar when first is 32 years and Neymar's 25 years old? Maybe swap another and 100 million or more. Is that a more reasonable deal, essentially, than just a straight swap?
I think clubs at that end of the market now are going to be very reluctant to sell to each other anyway. Yeah. Because they all perceive each other to be a threat. But what has to be remembered about Real Madrid is that, Modric is going to be 33 this year. Bale, although he's got a few goals in the last few weeks, he's not getting any younger or fitter. Neither is Benzema. Yeah. Sergio Ramos the wrong side of 30. Marcelo coming up on that age too. And the team has been together and successful for so long that it's been hard for them to deal with the fact that maybe some of them need to be replaced someday. But as we can see with the way that results are going, they're getting beaten by really modest teams in La Liga. The way results are going right now, you can see that edging ever closer. And, maybe Zidane is going to have to go at the end of the season, and maybe Perez is going to have to buy a few more Galacticos, because 1 or 2 signings isn't going to solve this problem for Madrid. Yeah.
So we've got a comment from Bama Daly who says, Man United will win the Champions League with Sanchez.
I would not rule Man United out of anything at this stage, especially in Europe, because
Premier League will be hard.
The Premier League's gone. So when I say I wouldn't rule them out of anything,
just the Premier League.
I'm ruling them out of that. But this seems to me the kind of Champions League campaign that Mourinho could get something out of. Yeah. Because there isn't really one outstanding candidate for the title. I know Barcelona are going so well in La Liga, but there's still for me the chance that they're going to get tripped up somewhere along the way. Same with Bayern. PSG and Real Madrid, one of them is going to have to go out. Yeah. So the path is going to be open to the semi-final at least for an outsider. Yeah. That could be City, but Mourinho's football, you may not like it, but it suits itself to these kind of European games. If they can battle away from home, a line of 4 plus a line of 5, Lukaku up front on his own, they get something away from home and then they're defending at Old Trafford against any of the big teams. You cannot rule Man United out of this.
I mean, it might get to the point if Man United can get high enough in the Premier League, so they don't have to worry about top 4, uncertainty there. Yeah. That they will just focus on the Champions League. The same way that last season they just started focusing on the Europa League when the top 4 was out of the question. Especially because as we've said, it's very unlikely that they're going to be able to catch Man City at this stage.
But Sanchez is obviously going to be eligible for the Champions League because he's just played in the Europa League for Arsenal, and they're going to be allowed to register him for the Champions League. So that's an important point to consider.
And we've also got a comment here from Amor who says, we can say welcome Mahrez to Arsenal. Is it true? It doesn't seem like that's something that's necessarily going to come through. It seems like one of those deals that's talked about quite a lot. Yeah. They've shown interest in him before, obviously. Yes. But they seem to be focused on other options.
Yeah, there's other options. There's other irons in the fire at the minute. And Kasper Schmeichel said it over the weekend as well, that unless there's something going on that the boys at Leicester don't know about, that they think that Mahrez is going to stay through this winter as well.
Cashula said, will Real Madrid let someone like Arsenal have Aubameyang? To me, that's a good point, because Real Madrid really could use an extra forward there, couldn't they, as an option? Because we've said Bale's been misfiring, Ronaldo hasn't been on form, lots of people have been criticising Benzema for a while now. They do have Asensio in there, but having another option, surely it would be a great idea.
It would, but look at Real Madrid over the past couple of seasons with Zidane. I would estimate, when you look at their my ideal Real Madrid starting 11. The most recent player that they've signed in that starting 11 is probably Toni Kroos, who was signed in 2014.
Yeah.
It's so hard for Real Madrid to sign a first teamer and improve what they already have that I just don't see it. You know, the transfer policy over the past couple of seasons has to be bring in, you know, the likes of Asensio, Ceballos, you know, those Theo Hernandez, younger Spanish players.
Yeah.
And try and blood them into the system that way. So to sign a Galactico or a first team player at Real Madrid, and for that player to come in and hit the ground running, very, very difficult.
Yeah. All right, we're going to call it there. Thank you so much to those of you who've joined us today. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow, so we'll see you then.